Verse 95. The Gandharva's air castle, Maya, a hair circle, and a fata morgana. They are non-entities, yet they appear as if they were entities. The nature of an objective existence is thus to be regarded. The hair circles, just these things you see floating in your eye when you look up at the clear blue sky. They're the nerve endings, the ganglia at the back of the eye. So this list is often mentioned. In verse 62 there was talk of the Gandharvas, the city of the Gandharvas and Fata Morgana. And in verse 65 mention is made of the Gandharva's castle, the firewheel, a mirage, and so on. So they are non-entities, yet they appear as if they were entities. And this is how we should regard objective existence. The last couple of verses have been concerned with this. Verse 93, verse 94, which I covered in the previous 2 videos, so it might be worth listening to these if you haven't done so, because this all seems quite philosophically interesting, but there's more to it than that. It's about dealing with moods. This is what I've been explaining in the previous 2 videos. We need to get beyond our basic tone. We have a basic tone, a basic existential tone, which characterizes how we feel about ourselves and the world. And it's a bit like a harmonic series. Above that basic tone are various moods, various mood harmonics. Which we vary between through the course of the day and night. This is our samsara. This is what we're caught up in, even if we think we're being spiritual. Our spirituality is often nothing more than one of our moods, one of these harmonic tones, depending on our root tone. So in order to become a child of the Buddha, to walk, as verse 94 said, where there is no discrimination, and it's verse 93, to see the world as the yogi does in his transcendental wisdom, we have to transcend all mental disturbance. And transcending mental disturbance does not mean getting into a nice meditative calm state. Transcending mental disturbance is not about calming the mind. The mind by its very nature cannot be calm. There may be times where it is spontaneously calm for a brief moment, and then we have an opportunity for transcendental insight. We've been shown something, just as the Buddha remembered when he was sitting under the Bodhi tree on the night of his enlightenment, and he remembered a time as a teenager when this happened. His mind was quiet for a moment, and he had a clue into the nature of enlightenment. Most of us, I suspect, have been given this clue already. There was nothing special about the Buddha at that time. He was just relaxed. Something shone through, and he remembered. I describe this as being on the other side of your moods. And I'd like to take this opportunity to talk about how things have been going for me recently. I've been having a very, very challenging time. A lot of it's centered around work, looking for work. Anxieties about money. It's been very challenging, but very rewarding as well, from a spiritual point of view. I'm applying for jobs, which can be quite nerve-wracking. I seem to suffer from some kind of performance anxiety. This might seem surprising. I'm quite happy talking to people, talking to groups of people, but if I have to perform, for example, doing a driving test or playing a musical instrument in public, I have a lot of trouble with this. In fact, my body tends not to cooperate. Even if I'm feeling relatively calm inside, my body doesn't seem to want to cooperate. It's like it's hardwired into my body. So this is an interesting problem. I actually have a couple of jobs, a couple of part-time jobs. One's a night job, so I have to be active all night. And this is an interesting one as well. When you don't have sleep, when you have to go without sleep, you're kind of exposed in a certain way to some very basic moods. It's like children who, when they're tired, get grumpy. The grumpiness is due to the fact that they're tired. So there's a lot going on here, isn't there? Not having sleep, having to be busy, looking for jobs, performance anxiety. I can understand why many people have difficulties with this, maybe get depressed. And I've been seeing my mind and my moods in their full vigour. And being Guru Gillis doesn't really help at all, because when a mood kicks in, whether it's anxiety or nervousness in the run-up to a job interview, or dealing with situations in the middle of the night, and I get sucked right into it. My body is experiencing all this. There's nothing I can do about it. It's all happening. And my mind is in a dreadful state. It's spinning around all over the place. In fact, part of me is horrified at the extent of its derangement and wonders if I should seek medication. Maybe medication for it would be a good idea. But this is what I've got to work with. I can recognize this. This is the advantage I suppose I've got as Guru Gillis. I can see very clearly what's happening. And these moods that I've been experiencing during the night shift, I can see how they go right back to my youth. It's like a shamanistic experience. I feel all that I think I am has been stripped away. I've been dismembered right back to my core feelings. Maybe feelings of wanting to throw a tantrum, whatever. I'm fortunate in that I have a very loving and very beautiful wife. This is something that I've always wanted. I have more love in my life than I've ever had. But that's also caused me a problem. The feeling I have is of digging through some ground until I hit some metal, maybe a metal box. I've no idea how big that metal box is. Because what I've found in myself here, as a result of my wife's love and everything else that's going on, is an inability to love back. Part of me loves her to bits, but I feel this deadness inside. It's a part of me that learnt not to love. I learnt not to love at a very early age, from the age of 5 or earlier. I'm not going to go into biographical details, but I learnt to not love my mother and father at the age of 5 or earlier. And it's not because I was unhappy. I was actually quite happy at the time. I just wrote my parents off basically at that age for reasons, if you did know my biography, I think most people would find perfectly understandable. As a result, I was looking for love and wisdom elsewhere. I started looking out quite intently for love and wisdom. And that's probably what drove me in the direction of spirituality. I went to India in my early 20s to see the super guru, Satya Sai Baba, who died earlier this year. Anyway, I won't go into all that. The point is, everything is being laid bare, and I can see what's happening. There's some very powerful stuff coming up, and it feels good actually. It feels good afterwards. It doesn't feel good at the time. And I think one of the advantages I've got at the moment is I'm not fueling it. I'm not fueling the habit energy. It's all erupting. It's intensely uncomfortable, extremely uncomfortable, but I'm not making a drama out of it. I remember my enlightenment practice, and even if I can't come back to the still center, to still realization, I know that I'm just going through something and that it's temporary. And what I'm going through has the weight of that emotion. So these examples given in verse 95, the Gandharva's air castle, Maya, a hair circle, they all, a fata morgana, a mirage, they all seem very slight. But that's not the experience. If you're in the desert and you see a mirage, an oasis, you don't know it's a mirage, you think it's an oasis, you're emotionally driven towards it. In fact, most of the things that we're emotionally driven towards are very insubstantial. They are no more than mirages, mirages that we've been sold as being worth desiring. Fame, riches, all the rest of it. Lifestyles of the rich and famous. So yes, it's easy to see mirages and castles in the air as non-entities. But what about the emotions, the moods that these invoke, which we believe to be real? So the nature of an objective existence is thus to be regarded. So there's no point in me decrying my lack of success at job interviews or feeling sorry for myself because of my past history or whatever. These things can just wash over. The sensations themselves are very real. I cannot make them go away. But what I can do is not reinforce them. I see it as like a purging that's going on. And this is why it feels very positive, because there are things, there are issues going right back to my youth and early childhood, which are now being flushed out. And I don't think this could have happened if I was living in a monastery or an ashram. Perhaps it could, who knows, these things will come out however they're going to come out, it's true. But in my case, I think the challenges of everyday life give us the greatest opportunities for deepening our spiritual realization.